Sandhan. All Gujarat Integrated Classroom.
સેટેલાઇટના માધ્યમથી જોડતી કડી એટલે સંધાન.
Good afternoon, dear friends. Today we are going to talk on diode and transistor. These two components are the basic building block of electronics. These are the two components which are widely used in the designing of electronic circuit. Today, we may not think any electronic circuit which is not having the component diodes and transistors. The study of diodes and transistors basically depends on the study of semiconductors. The semiconductor, where you can say basically it is arrived from p-type, n-type material. So before starting the diode or transistor, we should come to know that how we are differentiating these semiconductors, how it is differentiated from metals and insulators. Basically, we can divide any material into three basic parts. One is the metal, one can say conductor, another is the semiconductor, and third one is the insulator. Metal is the material where the number of free electrons are more. The semiconductor, where number of electrons are intermediate between the conductor and insulator. Insulator is the material where one can say very less amount of electrons are there. So conductivity of metal oblique you can say conductor is very high. The conductivity of semiconductor is intermediate between metal and insulator, whereas the conductivity of insulator is very less. One can say it is almost zero. But nowadays there is a certain studies are going where one can say one can improve the conductivity or you can say resistivity of the material. So let we say what is the semiconductor is a you can say special class of elements having the conductivity between that of good conductor like one can say copper, gold, can say aluminium, and that of an insulator like a plastic or wood. The basic property of a semiconductor is given away by its conduct a little bit. A semiconductor will carry electric current but not as easily as a normal conductor. At low temperature, semiconductor normally behaves as an insulator. So, metal, semiconductor and insulators are broadly classified, and on the basis of resistivity, one can say the resistivity of metal is too less, whereas the semiconductor is having the resistivity in the range of 10⁻⁻⁵ to 10⁻⁶ ohm meter, and the insulator is very high resistivity, is in the range of 10⁻11 to 10⁻19. See dear friends, this is the very important difference between you can say insulator, semiconductor and conductor. If we try to see the energy gap between conduction band and valence band in case of insulator is too high. So normally the energy gap, if it is more than 3.1 or 3.2 electron volt, that material is considered as a insulator. If the energy gap between valence band and conduction band is less, more than 0 and less than 3.1 or 3.2 or sometimes it may be 3.3, it is considered as a semiconductor. And in the case of metal, the energy gap is almost 0. There is an overlapping of conduction band and valence band in case of metals, or one can say conductors. So there are two types of semiconductors. One is the intrinsic semiconductor and another is the extrinsic semiconductor. Intrinsic semiconductor is the semiconductor where the impurity is 0, is a pure semiconductor. Silicon, germanium, these are the semiconducting materials without doping are considered as an intrinsic semiconductor. To change the property of a semiconducting material, likewise one can say the conductivity, one can add the impurity into the semiconductor. There are basically two types of impurities one can add to the particular semiconductor. Either it is a trivalent impurity or it is pentavalent impurity. So by adding the impurity into the given semiconductor, that semiconductor now is known as extrinsic semiconductor. So intrinsic semiconductor is the semiconductor having no doping, and extrinsic semiconductor having certain impurity. Intrinsic semiconductor where number of free electrons is equal to number of holes equal to intrinsic carrier concentration. But the problem with the intrinsic semiconductor is that the conductivity of that particular intrinsic semiconductor is very less, and such type of conductivity is not good for developing the electronic device. So what we need is a good conductivity of the given semiconductor, and hence we are adding the impurity to the given semiconducting material. When we add small amount of impurity to the given semiconducting material, the conductivity may rise, and such materials after adding the impurity are known as the extrinsic semiconducting material or impurity semiconducting material. The deliberate addition of a desirable impurity is called the doping or impurity atoms, and these are known as the dopants. Such a material finally are a doped semiconductor which are not pure semiconducting materials. The process of adding a desirable impurity to the given semiconducting material is known as the doping, and the doping atoms are called the dopants. Basically, as I told, there are two types of dopings normally we are carrying out are the pentavalent doping where valency are 5, and another is a trivalent doping where the valency is 3. The valency 5 pentavalent impurities may be arsenic, antimony, phosphorus as well. Trivalent impurities are like indium, boron, aluminium. Now, as per the impurity what we are adding, the semiconducting material that can be obtained, either it is N-type after adding the group of 5 elements, one can say arsenic, antimony or phosphorus, and it is a P-type semiconducting material after adding the group 3 elements are the, you can say, aluminium, boron or gallium. This is the one can say representation of the carrier concentration. If it is N-type material, the majority charge carriers are the electrons and the minority charge carriers are the holes. If you try to see towards the right, that in a case of P-type material, the majority charge carriers are the holes, whereas the minority charge carriers are the electrons. As in the case of intrinsic semiconductor, the number of holes and number of electrons are equal, whereas in case of N-type and P-type, in case of N-type, majority charge carriers are electrons are more than the holes, and in case of P-type, the number of majority charge carriers are holes and are more than the electrons. See, as I told you, the topic is diode, but it depends on a semiconducting material. Basically, a diode is a component that restricts the direction of flow of charged particles. It allows to flow charged particles in a one direction only. So one can say basically is a check valve. So this is the, you can say, basically presentation of junction diode. To fabricate a diode, one need P-type material and N-type material. If one can combine these two materials, that becomes a PN junction diode. The black one is the symbolical presentation of the diode, the anode and cathode. The below one is the, you can say, real picture, and I will show you later on how it looks like. This is the way how to check the diode. If one is having multimeter with him, then by using the multimeter and your connection with the diode, that the positive terminal of the multimeter is connected to the one of the anode terminal and the another terminal is connected to the cathode, and if your multimeter is placed on the ohm meter range, it should show you 0 ohms, and this is the condition which is known as a forward bias condition of the diode. Next one is to check whether the diode is working or not. Is the another condition is a reverse bias condition, where you connect your positive lead of your multimeter to the cathode terminal of the diode, and the anode terminal of the multimeter, anode of the diode is connected to the negative terminal of the multimeter. This is how you can connect to see whether your diode is working or not, and at that time your multimeter should show you the overload, means what, the reverse resistance of the diode resistance should be infinite, almost infinite. At that time you can say the diode is working. Next one is the condition, just you check, you put your multimeter in the diode range and you check like this. You connect your anode terminal of the diode with the positive terminal of the multimeter, and the cathode terminal of the diode is connected to the COM terminal of the multimeter, and your multimeter should show you certain voltage. This voltage whatever you are getting on the screen of the multimeter, that depends on the type of diode. If it is a silicon diode, then this may be 0.5, 0.6, 0.7 volt, and if it is diode is made up of germanium, then it may be 0.3, 0.4 volt, like this. So you are getting certain voltage, means what? The diode is in a forward bias. And condition number 2, if it is not showing you anything, overload is your reverse bias condition. This is how you can check your diode. What you do, one, you connect your positive terminal of the battery with the anode terminal, cathode terminal is connected to the LED, and negative of the LED is connected to the negative of the battery. And if your LED glows, means what? Your diode is connected in the forward bias. And in the next case, if you connect your anode with the negative plate of the battery and cathode with the LED, and the negative terminal of the LED is connected to the positive plate, in this case your LED light will not glow, means what? This diode is not connected in the forward bias. A reverse bias connection will not allow current to flow from your diode. So one can say this is the simple anode connection. I may flow and certain potential will develop across the diode. If it is a forward bias, then we are getting voltage and current graph like this, and it is reverse bias, we are not getting any current through the diode. So this is the condition when your diode is open, and at that time your current is 0 flowing from the diode. And if the diode is, you can say, in forward bias, it behaves like a closed switch, and where we are getting certain current is more than 0, but the resistance is almost 0. That's why as per the Ohm's law, we are getting the potential across this diode V equal to 0, and in this case the resistance is almost infinite. That's why the current is 0. Basically this diode is the component which is widely used in the circuit, basically known as a rectifier. So normally what we are getting at our home appliances, electrical supply, that is a AC supply, but certain electronic devices what we are using in our day-to-day life are, you can say, are the uses basically this DC voltage. So we need to convert this AC voltage into the DC voltage, and this conversion basically uses diode. So the rectifier is a, you can say, circuitry where the component diode is used. The first component of this rectifier circuit, you can say, is a step down transformer which transforms the higher voltage AC into lower voltage AC. This is the diode rectifier, where we may see two types of rectifiers. One is the half wave rectifier, another is the full wave rectifier. But dear friends, whatever rectified output we are getting is not a pure conversion of AC into DC. Sometimes there may be 99% conversion of your AC into DC may take place, but 1% or 2% AC still may be there after the output of this rectifier. So we need to remove this 1% or 2% AC present in DC after the conversion. So we need to use the circuitry which can remove this 1% or 2% the AC present in rectified output. So the 1% or 2% the AC present after the rectification process are known as a ripple, and to remove this ripple we may use the filter circuitry. There are, you can say, 3 to 4 types of filter circuitry may be used for the filtering process. And at last we may use the regulator ICs nowadays available in the market. I will show you later on. And these voltage regulators may give you smooth output at the output component. And this is a load. You can say nowadays we are using any load, say it can be mobile, where we can connect our final output getting from the regulator. As I told you, there are two types of rectifiers. One is the half-wave rectifier, another is a full-wave rectifier, where half-wave rectifier is a circuit where you are giving your AC voltage to be converted into the DC. This is a step-down transformer. Basically, this is a primary winding where the number of turns of this primary should be higher than these turns of the secondary. And the voltage whatever you are getting, like Vs, is a AC voltage, but suppose this is a 230 volt AC, then this will be 10 volt or 9 volt or 8 volt AC. This volt is applied to this diode, single diode, and the output over here across the load, that will be observed like this. Suppose we are applying the particular AC voltage. This is a positive half of the AC voltage. During this positive half of AC voltage, you are getting here, you are getting at this anode positive voltage AC positive voltage is applied to the positive of the diode. So this diode is now in a forward bias, and hence we are getting the circuit completed, and this is how we are completing our circuit, and hence we are getting certain voltage Vs whatever we have applied. So this is the load voltage which is equal to the supplied voltage. But if you try to see the next circuit where we are applying the negative half of our AC voltage, where, dear friends, this is the point we are getting the negative voltage. This is the positive terminal of the diode, and the negative of the supply is connected to the positive of the diode. The diode is now in a reverse bias, and hence the diode will not conduct, and hence we are not getting any voltage at this particular terminal. So it is look like this. So this is the voltage, this is the AC voltage what we are applying to this our half wave rectifier. This is our AC voltage, this is our AC voltage is applied to the diode, and this is the load through which we are getting the output. As I told you, whenever there is a positive half cycle of the AC voltage, we are getting the output, but whenever we are getting or we are applying the negative half cycle of the AC voltage, the diode will be in reverse bias, and during this cycle we are not getting any voltage. Again, whenever there is a positive voltage, the diode will conduct, and we are getting the output over the, you can say, your load terminal. So this is the diode, this is the configuration known as a half wave rectifier, where we are getting only positive half cycle, we are not getting negative half cycle. Such a way this is known as a half wave rectifier. There may be, one can say, this was our applied voltage. During the positive half cycle we are getting output. Whenever we are having the negative half cycle, our diode will not conduct, we are not getting any output. And this is, one can say, is the again positive half cycle, diode will conduct, and we are getting output at the load terminal. The next configuration is the use of diode as a full wave rectifier. This is the rectifier which is known as a full wave rectifier. One can design full wave rectifier using two types of circuitry. One is the center tap, another is the bridge rectifier. Center tap rectifier, where special type of transformer is used. This is the transformer which is known as a center tap transformer. If one is using this center tap transformer, one need to use only two diodes. Here is the, you can say, working of this center tap type full wave rectifier. So whenever you are applying the positive half cycle to the transformer, it step downs the AC voltage, positive voltage is applied over here, and the negative